colon, kidney, and skin are elimination organs.
Mhm.
The liver and the kidney, so the kidney is a 2-for-1 special. The liver and the kidney are detoxification organs. So they take toxins and put them in forms to be eliminated. A good detoxification program reduces garbage in, optimizes the 2 detoxification organs, liver and kidney, and optimizes the 3 elimination pathways. Now you can imagine if you're not doing all of those things, which happen to be 1, 2, 3, right? If you don't do all those things, you're going to get traffic jams, if you will. Like if you do everything to support the liver, but if you're not going to the bathroom, pooping, well, then you have a traffic jam.
Right.
If you do everything to support your kidney, but you don't drink enough water, how will you pee it out? So you always have to make sure your elimination holes, if you will, are working well, so that when you start revving up your detoxification organs, there's an appropriate pathway for them to be removed from your body.
Dr. Shilpa Saxena, I want everyone to meet you and to hear from you, because I've just been telling you that I'm a bit of a fan actually of the way that you teach and the way that you present. I'm an IFM student, so I study functional medicine, and you are a lecturer for the cardiometabolic module. Is it just that module that you lecture for, or do you do others?
I speak mainly for the cardio
Mm.
metabolic module. I lead that module. And then I also do some presentations for AFMCP, which is the Applying Functional
That's
Medicine
right.
in Clinical Practice. Yeah,
Yes,
there's an
yes.
assortment of providers that speak on that.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. So basically, I'm so glad that you said yes to this interview, because I just want everybody to benefit, like I have, from your teaching skills, because you have this ability to take something that's complex, like a complex topic, and you're able to break it down into really simplistic kind of layman terms. So I feel like my audience would benefit so much from that. And I'm so excited to dig into today's topic, which is weight gain, obesity, uh, as it relates to toxins. Because let's face it, when people think about weight gain and when people think about how to lose weight and how to get into shape, they don't think about toxins. We think about calories, we think about carbohydrates, we think about exercise, but we completely gloss over the idea of toxins, but it's such a huge piece of the puzzle. So that's basically what I wanted to cover today. But first of all, just so that my audience get to know you, how did you get into functional medicine? Because you have quite an interesting story with your own health and how you reversed your own diseases, like your own illnesses.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Tam, for having me. I'm excited to be able to share some of the things that have been passed on to me from my teachers. So, yeah, I went into medicine like a good Indian girl, thinking that I was going to learn and master the science of healing. And very quickly out of residency, I realized that a lot of what I do was prescription management and procedure recommendations. And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm actually healing. Now, in this process, I was a patient of my own, but for cultural reasons, I didn't generally go to the doctor. Like in our family, like there are different kinds of families, but we have to be near death to go visit a doctor. That was just the culture of my family. Other people, I've noticed if you sneeze the wrong way, you're at the doctor's office. So my family was the opposite. But I was still very mindful that I was an allergic kid. I was diagnosed with asthma. I fainted 11 times in my life, which was called vasovagal syncope. At the time, I had a neurological workup at age 16, a cardiac workup, and they said, oh, you're fine. Again, always like, well, there's nothing wrong with you. And in my mind, I'm like, but there kind of is. But okay, if you tell me I don't have anything. And, I was put on every now and then like an asthma medication or really nothing for the syncope. And then I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is a form of insulin resistance that affects the ovaries. And again, this runs in my family, diabetes does. So I thought, okay, well, these are my genes showing up. And I was under the myth that a majority of what I was dealing with was just because it ran in my genes. I had really no concept that the choices that I was making day to day were affecting my health. Even though I followed the party line that diet and exercise are good for you, I never really understood the degree in which you can personalize that.
Yep.
So at some point, 3 years after working out in the real world, I decided I was going to start my own practice because I'm a firstborn female idealist, and I decided I'm going to do it. And I really wanted to be able to work with patients and partner with them in what I would think is healing. So I was going to focus on prevention. Well, these patients started telling me about all these supplements they were taking, and I was like, I have no idea what this is. We were never trained in these things. So I started taking courses, and that's when this whole world of functional medicine opened up. And of course, the first patient that many of us start to use functional medicine on is ourselves. So I started going gluten-free and doing detox, and all of a sudden I had a regular menses after 20 years of not having regularity. And for me, scientifically, I'm like, well, if I'm having regular periods, that must be a really good sign, because that's part of a healthy woman's physiology. And then it just exploded. I became a sponge for this because all of a sudden I was actually healing people. I was getting people back to what I call original design. So that was kind of my journey into functional medicine. Thank goodness for patients feeling comfortable to tell me about what they were really doing, because that started the inquiry into something that probably intuitively was what I was wanting to do. I just didn't know what to call it at that time.
I can imagine patients were confused when they'd come to see you. They'd be like, oh, I'm coming for my prescription, I'm coming for my drugs. And you'd be like, well, actually, do you exercise and do you eat? What's your diet like? Which is what people don't expect when they go to see their doctor.
Well, either they love it or they don't, because there's definitely a group of people that became tired of me asking about lifestyle. And I explained to them, that's fine. I'm probably not the doctor for you. If you prefer prescriptions and procedures, many of my colleagues out there would be better suited for you, but I'm going to continue to give you choices that would help you reduce this need. So I kind of invited them to leave in a respectful way. So they're matched with an appropriate ideology.
Perfect. And do you know what? Because changing your lifestyle to become healthier and to reverse out of disease and, to prevent disease, it's hard work. It's not easy. It requires discipline. It requires, you've got to be determined. You've got to remind yourself every day that this is what you're doing. And it's not an easy task. And especially when it comes to weight gain, especially when it comes, oh my gosh, obesity and being overweight is it's an absolute, we've heard this all before, it's an epidemic, and it's not getting any better. So it's obviously hard for people to lose weight and to stay in shape. But like I said before, it's not just about calories or about the food that you eat or how much exercise you're doing. Toxins play a huge role in this. So can you kind of kick us off, first of all, about how let's actually start with calories in, calories out, because that's what people have a problem with. That's what they usually think they need to do to lose weight. But what is the problem with just losing weight by just reducing what you're eating, just by eating carrots instead of proper meals? And what's the problem there with regards to toxins? What actually happens to toxins when you just lose weight, and what happens there?
Yeah. So, I would say if we could flash back 100, 150 years, calories in, calories out might have worked much better than it does now. So if you go back 150 years, food industry was quite different. So see, calories in, calories out is a quantity, right? It's a math equation. Like, how many calories did I take in? How many did I burn? And then did I net have more in or less in? And that determines if I gained weight or lost weight. But the assumption is that the calories were, number one, quality calories, which 150 years ago, food was more food. Today, food is more like food-like substances. That's what Dr. Mark Hyman sometimes calls it, right? So back then, the assumption was fair. Many things were organic because all this other food industry hadn't come in. The other assumption is that you were eating it at normal times and normal intervals, right? So timing and quality were assumptions that were okay 150 years ago when calories in, calories out made sense. The other thing is, what's the company these calories keep? Like, are you sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning, or are you sleeping at an appropriate bedtime? How stressed are you? What amount of physical activity do you have going on? You just imagine somebody 150 years ago, they had a lot more what we call NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which said in plain words is just like regular daily activity, taking the stairs, having to go walk to the market to get your vegetables, just walking the stairs in your house up and down, squatting, if that's the way your culture goes to the bathroom. There was a lot more NEAT. So calories in, calories out worked back in the day because all those other factors were taken care of.
Yeah.
So now today, flash forward, the quality of the calories are very different. There are many toxins. If we talk about toxins, one of the biggest toxins is those that's within our food supply.
Right.
And not only with our, just the chemical ingredients that might be on your cracker box ingredients, but then also if you think about our produce, pesticides and things that are in the water are also entering into our system, whether we do it by choice, by putting it in our mouth, or perhaps it's just in the air that we breathe. So these toxins, many of the ones that persist, meaning they stay in your body for long periods of time, they're what we call fat-soluble toxins. So they dissolve in fat. They don't dissolve in water where you can easily pee it out if you have a good kidney, or easily sweat it out if you're a good sweater, assuming you have physical activity. Generally, fat-soluble toxins require a healthy liver. And that liver, if you know, doesn't have a hole to the outside. The liver has to take a fat-soluble toxin and make it water-soluble. And most of the time, it'll send it to the colon to poop out. That's our hole to the outside to get a fat-soluble toxin garbage out. But as you may also know, Tam, constipation, functional constipation, meaning not having a healthy toothpaste consistency bowel movement 1 to 3 times a day that's complete and spontaneous, that is also vastly missing in today's society. So you've got this cluster of factors that is leading to our obesity epidemic.
Right. There was this amazing slide that you had on one of your presentations with when it comes to calories in, calories out, and the toxic buildup in your body. So if you have toxins in your body, like you said, fat soluble ones, the ones that aren't easily excreted, then if you are to lose weight, you don't exactly lose those toxins in your weight. You actually keep those toxins. So what happens is when you, because those fat soluble toxins are housed in your fat cells. So when you lose body fat, where do they go? Like where do they have to go? And where do they have to go, Shilpa?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So maybe people who do the calorie in, calorie out will lose a certain amount of weight in the beginning, but then they plateau. And the reason why is because when that fat is quote unquote burned, the toxins that were hiding in that fat, and actually I wouldn't even say hiding in the fat, I would say the fat was sequestering those toxins, protecting you from those toxins, right? That's sometimes one of the reasons why the body holds on to fat, because it's got to protect you from these persistent toxins. But when you lose that fat, now these toxins are mobile. And when they're mobile, if you've done your job and supported the liver, then what would happen is the liver would metabolize these fat-soluble toxins and send it to the colon. But let's say your liver isn't supported with the right nutrients or supplements or just a lifestyle. Well, then these toxins persist in your body. And over time, your body is going to say, well, these boogers aren't leaving here, so we need to get some fat here. And all of a sudden, you'll see people gain weight back, or they just plateau because their body will not let go of more fat because the toxic load in the body is too detrimental. So your body, I want you to know, is actually trying to do right by you when it's trying to hold on to fat, because it's saying, I need to protect you from these toxins that you haven't gotten rid of.
So that kind of explains why someone might find themselves yo-yo dieting. So just say they lose weight and then they find that it comes on way too easily, and then they lose weight and it comes on way too easily. A lot of people struggle with that. Like that's a common struggle that people have. But then also, there are other places in our body that are, that are made of fat. Like, so for example, our nervous system, our brain, our hormones, like they are fatty. And so toxins can get into those areas, but then obviously it can cause, all sorts of havoc within your body. Um,
Yes. And that just compounds the issue, Tam. So let's say these toxins, after you've lost a certain amount of fat, are circulating in the body. I call that retoxing because
yes.
they were first within the fat. Now they're on the loose. Okay. These are like teenagers on the run at night, not a good situation. So then they can hide out in your brain because 70% of the dry weight of your brain is fat. So when they hide out in your brain, that can cause brain symptoms that can vary from mood disturbances like depression, anxiety. But the most common one as it relates to obesity and weight loss resistance is cravings.
Right.
Okay, because your pleasure center is in your brain. And if you now have these toxins mucking with your pleasure center and causing mood disturbances, well, it's not very uncommon that people will go to food to satiate their cravings or their mood issues. So that's one of the ways that toxins, when they retox, will cause brain symptoms that then compound the weight loss resistance. Those toxins can also attach to hormones. Hormones are made from a cholesterol backbone. So, cholesterol being a fat, those toxins can kind of tie right into that hormone. And then they can cause wacky hormone symptoms, which can be also mood, hot flashes, GYN issues, menstrual irregularities. And it's really hard to persist with diet and exercise when those things are going on. So, again, another saboteur of your weight loss resistance. And then the one other thing that I think happens with your hormones and your brain being off is it'll create a stress response, whether it's physical or psychological. You're looking at the scale and you're thinking, what the heck? I am eating raw celery and cucumbers and I'm exercising. Why aren't I losing weight? So now your adrenal is brought into the equation and your adrenal goes, is there a crisis here? Now, of course, for you, this number on the scale is a crisis. The adrenal, not knowing if it's a weight issue or a saber-toothed tiger, is going to release cortisol. And cortisol is your anti-inflammatory hormone released by the adrenal, but it creates weight loss resistance. So now you've got the brain, the hormones, the adrenal, and the toxins really stopping effective and I'm going to go to say fat loss. I don't even want to say weight loss because we don't want to lose muscle in the process. We want to lose extra water, like that swollen water, inflammatory water, and we want to lose fat when we're doing this.
I mean, it kind of, the way you've just described it, you've kind of just described, you answered one of my questions. I was going to talk about, the different mechanisms of action of how toxins actually affect your body, but you actually just went over quite a few of them there. But in a way, even though our body is designed to kind of help us, it must feel like your body is against you, because all of the things you just listed, it points towards weight gain, and it's like there's nothing you can, like, it's you're just like, where do I turn, what do I do? And your hormones are against you, in quotes, and your nervous system is against you, and so it's a really tough spot to be in. When it comes to toxins, just so that the audience know what they actually are, and what we're actually speaking about here. Now, it's quite for me personally, it's a heavy topic, because toxins are everywhere. They're in our food, but now they're in our environment, and they're pretty much everywhere. And it's heavy for someone to think, okay, so how do I avoid these toxins? So it's a heavy topic, but where do we find toxins? Like, what are the toxins, the classic ones, and where do we usually find them?
Great question. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Before I go down this route, I
Yeah,
want you to know it's going to sound depressing
right.
and it's going to sound like there's nothing you can do about it.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is the disclaimer that
Yeah.
there is light at the end of this tunnel.
Good to
Just
know.
stay with
Yes.
us.
Yeah. Got it.
So number one, we talked about our food supply. Our goal would be to try to eat organic whenever possible. Now, I will tell you that is difficult for a majority of the population because organic in many areas is expensive.
Mm.
So you could go to the environmental working group. Here in the US, we have this list of the most toxic, dirty foods, the dirty dozen,
Mm.
and they change from time to time. And so, if you had to pick which things to try to go organic, you might want to prioritize those foods or avoid them. Come up with less, there's kind of like a clean 14 and a dirty dozen. The numbers change every now and then, but look to the foods that are cleaner. If not, there are methods that you can look into that help you clean produce so that they have less toxins on them. The goal in this whole discussion is not zero toxins, it's less toxins. Zero
Right.
toxins is impossible.
Yeah.
You weren't designed to live in a place that had zero toxins. Your body is there to help you. You just need to reduce the burden so that your natural liver, colon, kidney, and sweat can get rid of it. Okay, so food is number one. The next big category to me is personal hygiene products.
Mm.
Okay, we very much by our choice, and we don't realize it, put a ton of chemicals in our hair, on our skin, in our mouth, on our face with our makeup, um, perfumes. Look at those things and one by one start to find a more natural option. You can start with your laundry detergent. You can find things that are more eco-friendly. Apple cider vinegar, excuse me, distilled white vinegar, lemon juice, baking soda can go a long way for cleaning things. And that can make a big difference in reducing your total burden. Perfumes. I
Mm.
tend to use essential oils,
Mhm.
and there's many companies that make essential oil-based things. Makeup. Find things that use more natural ingredients. Will there be some chemical in one of your lipsticks? Probably.
Mm.
Could it be the lipstick that has only one ingredient versus 17? Yes.
Yeah.
So make a conscious choice on your personal hygiene products.
And sorry,
Then,
Shilpa,
yeah,
just to cut in there. When I feel overburdened, or when when I'm explaining this to my clients as well, I find that the best thing to do is to just pick the one thing or the two things that you use the most, and just start with that. That's a really great place to start. So, for example, with myself, I started with toothpaste. So now my toothpaste is super natural. Even sometimes I'll just revert to using some coconut oil, and I'll just kind of brush my teeth with that, just, if I'm just feeling it. But usually my toothpaste is super clean and I'm willing to spend the extra money on that. And then, makeup products and deodorant is a big one. Something that you wear every single day. If you can just swap it out with something that's cleaner, then you've already made a huge difference to your daily routine. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
yes. And on that deodorant, let me just give a
Mm.
quick little hack.
Yeah.
You want to avoid deodorants that are antiperspirants
Yes. Yeah.
because that aluminum hydroxide, first of all, aluminum is a metal that you don't want in your system, but it stops sweating.
Mm.
And although you don't want to sweat in one way, you know that sweating is one of the main ways you get rid of toxins.
Right.
So you can find things that are deodorants, but that still allow you to perspire. Wear different clothing. I'm in Florida, so I surely feel the pain of sweaters, and I'm about to go likely into menopause here in the next few years. So I understand if that is some of the triggers, but that's a daily thing, just like Tam said, that
Yeah.
that's a double whammy. It's a
Mhm.
toxin in and stopping toxins from coming out. So
Right.
yeah, incremental changes. I think laundry detergent is another big one. And I think your household cleaners, just switching to things like we clean our floors with just water and vinegar.
Mm.
That's it. we stopped bringing, oh, here's another simple tip if you're open to it. Stop wearing shoes in your house. The reason why, this is a very Eastern way of culture, but there are microparticles of heavy metals and toxins that are on the ground when you're walking with your shoes. You're bringing them into the house, onto the rug, onto your furniture, and then you and your pets and your children are laying down on these things. You can dramatically reduce kind of the toxic burden of your house by just leaving your shoes at the door.
Wow, that is a good hack. Yeah, anybody who wears shoes or, even their slippers kind of outside, inside. Yeah, that's a good
Mm-hmm.
tip.
Mm-hmm. I would say if I had to pick those three categories, it's food, personal hygiene, and household cleaning. Now, could you, obviously, if you're living in an area that has pollution, what can you do to improve filtration in your home? The obvious is still there about avoiding living or working in places that have a high level of pollution, but I find those to be harder to modify.
Yeah.
So I'm picking the ones that you have a lot more control over. Oh, the other one I would say, I have to remember that this is obvious to me, but may not be, because we just so many of us are just a byproduct of what we've been trained to think by
Mm.
society. So the other thing is clean water.
Mm.
Water is 60 to 70% of your body, and you want to make sure you have a clean water supply. I personally use a reverse osmosis water system, but there's a lot of water filtration systems that exist. If you wanted to get a pitcher or something that you attach to the faucet in your kitchen, if you're really sensitive, you can attach it to the one on your shower head, because that's another time where you're getting a lot of skin exposure
Yes,
to
yes.
the chlorine or toxins that may be in your specific city water supply or well water.
Yeah. So basically, anybody listening to this, you've had a whole list there of where you can find toxins. So just pick the thing or the things that are easiest to change first and just think about it. Think about making some healthy switches. So when it comes to somebody who's thinking, okay, so we're talking about detox, we're talking about toxic burden, toxins, I'm overweight, how does someone know that they have a buildup of toxins? What sort of symptoms do they have? So we all have some sort of buildup, but how do we know that we need to detoxify? Yeah.
Yeah, here's kind of the group of people that are the most obvious to me. Number one, if you're the person who gets all the side effects whenever you take a prescription, like you're very sensitive
Mm.
to prescriptions, you likely have too much garbage. Number two, if you walk by a perfume store and you get a headache,
Me.
or yeah,
Yeah.
or let's say that you're near somebody who's cleaning a house with bleach, that bothers you, like whether that's a mild headache or you just feel like this wave of yuck,
Mm.
malaise.
Mm.
That might be a sign that you got a toxic burden, because things like perfumes and paint fumes and inks and solvents, um, these kinds of things are fat soluble toxins. So they enter into you and they literally kind of your liver's like, I'm sorry, Charlie, we are full here. And so the toxin's like, well, what am I going to do? I might as well go roam the streets. And then one of the most common places they like to go is the brain. And you'll have this immediate brain symptom, headache, malaise, nausea, weird, not like dramatically difference in vision, but people just feel kind of swimmy, maybe would be another word.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of sensitive to chemicals, that's likely a sign that your garbage cans, i.e. your liver, is full and needs a full functional medicine detoxification support. Now, that could be supplements. It could also be lifestyle things like far infrared sauna and sweating, eating brassica and cruciferous vegetables. But I'm sorry, I'm going off track. Back to the symptoms. That's kind of the people who I automatically know are what we call multiple chemical sensitivity patients, likely to be full of toxins. Weight loss resistance could be a
Right.
sign of too many toxins. Brain symptoms, brain fog, decreased concentration, mental health issues, like being clumsy. These could be a sign that toxins have built up in your brain. The other thing that is a representation of toxins building up is actually what we call cardiometabolic risk factors, things like blood sugar problems, blood pressure, blood cholesterol problems. Because when toxins build up in fat, they build up and create inflammation. And inflammation is what drives the sugar, cholesterol, and blood pressure issues. Hormone, like wacky hormone symptoms, could be another way somebody manifests too many toxins. If you are not a good pooper, you likely have toxic chemical backup because you need a good elimination track. And liver loves to send to colon. So if colon is backed up, liver can be doing all the right things, but then it gets to the colon and the colon says, sorry, Charlie, we're not having a bowel movement for another few days here. And then what happens is the toxins actually get reabsorbed back into circulation. So those are kind of the people I would say to look out for.
And I suppose skin goes into that list as well. If someone has had bad skin, and
that's a great one. Yeah. Like difficult to control skin issues could be a sign of impaired detoxification. Many of my autoimmune patients have detoxification impairments as well.
I mean, listening to this list, it feels like pretty much most of us could do with a detoxification program. Like, it just makes sense though, doesn't it? Because we're surrounded by toxins and, you know, over our lifetime, we're just building them up. So it makes sense that the majority of us could do with some sort of awareness of how to to enhance our detoxification systems, and to maybe embark on a program of some sort, just to kind of, you know, make sure that it's done properly and done the right way. So when it comes to, so just to kind of give a brief overview of what you've discussed. So we have toxins in our food, in our environment, in our skincare, hair care products, house products, and a lot of them are fat soluble, so that they're the ones that come out in your poop. But if you're not pooping, then obviously they get backed up and they can get stored in your body. So when it comes to weight gain, obviously they like to hide in your fat. So if you have gained weight and you're finding it difficult to lose, or you're yo-yo dieting, then by reducing your toxic load, that could be a really great way to help you on your kind of weight loss journey. So when it comes to actually doing that, so detoxifying. Now, can you just explain that term? Because obviously our bodies know how to detox, you know, it's kind of built to do that. But what is it? What is detoxification with regards to like a detoxification program? Or because when we think about detox, we think about juices and we think about fasts and, you know, all of these kind of trendy detoxification cleanses. Yeah,
another term.
Right. So how do they, I mean, they're the common misconceptions. What is a proper detoxification process? And what are the mechanisms? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, very good question. So let's do a little bit of a science lesson to make sure that we understand what a complete detoxification regimen was intended to be. And we're going to take our cue from original design. So whether you believe in God or nature, original design has a balance of garbage coming in should be less than garbage exiting, right? That's how you keep a clean home. If you imagine the garbage you bring in should be less than the amount of garbage you put out. Otherwise, you would be on one of those shows that they have to have an intervention with your house. So number one, we want to reduce the incoming garbage like we've just discussed. As a part of a good detoxification regimen, you can't continue to live a dirty lifestyle and then think that you can remove enough. You have to mitigate the garbage coming in. So now let's talk about part two, which is increasing the garbage leaving. So we talked about the three main organs. We've got your colon, your kidney, and your skin. So you poop, pee, or sweat it out. So when it comes to kidney and sweat, a big portion of that is hydrating well, hydrating and moving. In order, our physical body as part of original design was meant to move in all different directions. That absolutely helps the colon get literally milked. And when you milk the colon, it makes it easier to remove and excrete. And notice the language I'm using. colon, kidney, and skin are elimination organs.
Mm-hmm.
The liver and the kidney, so the kidney is a 2-for-1 special. The liver and the kidney are detoxification organs. So they take toxins and put them in forms to be eliminated. A good detoxification program reduces garbage in, optimizes the 2 detoxification organs, liver and kidney, and optimizes the 3 elimination pathways. And you can imagine if you're not doing all of those things, which happen to be 1, 2, 3, right? Yeah. If you don't do all those things, you're going to get traffic jams, if you will. Like if you do everything to support the liver, but you don't, if you're not going to the bathroom, pooping, well, then you have a traffic jam. Right. If you do everything to support your kidney, but you don't drink enough water, how will you pee it out? So you must, you always have to make sure your elimination holes, if you will, are working well, so that when you start revving up your detoxification organs, there's an appropriate pathway for them to be removed from your body. So kidney, I think a majority of it is not taking prescriptions and or over-the-counter medicines that interrupt the kidney's function. Obviously, controlling your blood pressure and blood sugar will help that kidney so it can remove toxins. The biggest culprit for most of us is the liver. That's the one who lags behind. And so the liver needs very specific ingredients to make its specialized trash bags, is what I say. These specialized trash bags take a fat-soluble toxin and they wrap it up in this trash bag so that it can be removed through the colon, the kidney, and the skin. So those trash bags come from nutrients, which you can get from a very healthy, well-balanced diet. And that's like 5 to 9 servings of fruits and veggies that are cleaner, and or dietary supplements that have concentrated forms of the nutrients that you would get from those food sources. So when we do a full detoxification program, we must support the liver only after we've made sure the person is eliminating through the colon well. And we always support with good water. Things you can do from a dietary standpoint to support the liver is to eat 1 serving of these cruciferous or brassica veggies. These are the smelly ones. These are broccoli and cabbage and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, bok choy. They
are the smelly ones. You're right, I've never made that link before.
Yeah, they have glucosinolates in them, sulfur-containing compounds that are really good to make those specialized trash bags. Far infrared sauna is another great way to amplify detoxification and elimination. But I'm going to have to tell you that with the amount of garbage that most of us get in, taking dietary supplements is common for most people on the front end of their detoxification program. And then the goal is to whittle that down to match your garbage coming in so that you have a nice balance. In fact, you might have seen me like drinking my little shake here. And this is what we call a functional food. It has a lot of nutrients in here because I'm just not able to stop all garbage coming in. So I have nutrients in my little smoothie here that provide the things that I know I'm going to need to get the garbage out for the day.
So I suppose we're going down this road now. So we're going into the details of how to help your body detoxify most efficiently. So I presume, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, I presume going on a juice cleanse or one of these other sort of cleanses, it's not going to quite do the trick because it doesn't address those 3 stages that you spoke of.
In my opinion, and also some of these juice cleanses are very high in sugar, and sugar triggers inflammation. So they're great in one sense because they're reducing garbage in from, you're not eating pizza and burgers and hot dogs. So you're eating mostly plant-based nutrients. But when you take all the fiber out, you really increase the glycemic index, which creates inflammation, which creates another source of garbage. So I don't think they're wrong. I just don't think they're the best choices. And And I
They
think,
serve a purpose, but
yeah,
if you're speaking of detoxification, it's not the best way to go. Like there are other ways to
it's
go.
not complete
Yeah,
enough, in
it's
my
not
opinion. It's
complete.
not complete.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so when it comes to detoxing, then what are the key foods that, first of all, people should be avoiding?
Well, let's just say, what are the food-like substances is what you
Food-like
really
substances. Yeah.
want to
Like, you're right.
avoid.
You're right.
Let's just create this awareness that
Yes.
perhaps a lot of the things you're currently eating are not even really food.
Mm,
They are man-made substances that you have just been acculturated to think are food. If your great 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 grandmother would not recognize it, it likely isn't food.
mm,
Like if I were to have my great great grandmother, like if I gave her this thing in a wrapper, she would not understand what it is. And could she bake a cookie? Yeah, but she would do it with whole foods,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Right.
So it's not that it's the cookie, it's just what gets processed and all the preservatives and all that, that makes it food-like.
Mm,
Whereas a homemade cookie with scratch ingredients is more like food. Now, I'm using cookie as an example. I don't know why that's the first one that came to my head. But it just begs the point that a lot of the things that you're eating aren't even food.
mm. So basically processed foods are out, like the
Well,
foods that you
reduce. It's just like
reduce.
toxins.
Yeah.
It's hard, even healthy crackers. If you're gonna get a processed food, find the ones with the ingredients that you understand as
Mm,
food, right? So there may be, there's a whole row of crackers in most supermarkets, but you might be able to find the one that has like real ingredients.
yeah.
I think it becomes difficult for most people to be normal in society if
Mm,
they don't partake in some degree of processed foods. But you want to try to avoid the ones that have chemicals in them as much as possible. And I'm going to just say this as an aside, you will potentially lose some friends over this.
mm.
Okay. There's a
Interesting.
social impact to
Mm,
becoming healthy. I remember when I was going through this and I was learning all this and I was making my attempts to eat healthier food, some of the biggest obstacles to my change were my friends.
mm.
And I love them, but they would question what I was doing. They would tease me in a sweet way, but kind of teasing. Sometimes I felt guilty, not because they did it to me, but I felt guilty not serving something that they would enjoy.
Yeah.
Or if we went out to eat, I felt sometimes awkward, saying, I will have a sparkling water with bitters instead of partaking in wine with everybody because I was just trying to reduce my toxic load at that particular moment.
So how
So I
did you
just found
overcome
that out.
that? Because that's quite a challenge. How did you overcome that? Because I can imagine other people will be feeling the same.
I tried to educate my friends and my social groups on what my goals were if I knew them well enough and I cared to explain. For many people, like when I ordered sparkling water and bitters, it made them feel okay that I was ordering a drink
Mm.
because sometimes this makes other people who are drinking feel awkward. Or, if you order the salmon with veggies, hold the rice, the person who's ordering the tiramisu and the steak with the hollandaise sauce all of a sudden has an awkwardness. There's an
Yes.
awkward.
Yeah. I've
So
been there
sometimes
as well
yeah.
with certain
So,
people. Yeah.
so I just kind of take it as like, hey, I'm just working on something to improve some of my health. I don't make it like evangelical. I
Mm.
don't make it like everybody has to do what I'm doing. Some people become curious and ask, and then I'll kind of take a step forward towards their direction.
Mm.
I will tell you, I made a mistake on the front end because sometimes people are curious, and I went 4 steps in, and it was too much for what they were ready
Right.
for.
Right.
So just know that as you're making these changes, there will be a potential social impact. There will be certain places that you've been going out to eat that you don't eat as frequently, or your menu options at the place you like to eat, become limited. But as you start seeing the actual benefits, like I've gotten rid of 5 diseases. I was at 32, I had 5 diseases. And at 50, I just turned 50, I have 0.
Mm.
0 meaning none of them are active. I still keep them under wraps because I follow original design. I'm constantly thinking, okay, what's my toxic burden? And I will tell you, I'll go to a fast food place if I'm on a road trip. Every now and then I will have a taco and break down. So I don't want you to think that I'm like some perfection who never eats a processed food in my life. I just make sure I clean it up every day.
Yeah. And you're just reducing. You haven't cut it out, you're just reducing. So you mentioned obviously foods that have lots of ingredients you don't understand. Try to reduce those as much as possible. But are there any foods, so not food-like substances, but are there any foods that you think don't help with detoxification, or are all foods absolutely fine? Because you mentioned rice, for example, you said, I'm not sure why you were skipping rice back then, but you said salmon with vegetables, hold the rice. So I just wondered, that just made me think, are there any foods that you
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Are particularly harder on the
Mm,
liver. Yeah, well, alcohol is
yeah.
obviously one of them. Sugary drinks. I'm going to
Mm,
say that out loud because some people don't think of sugary drinks as toxic, but they
mm.
are food like, they're drink like substances, I should
Yeah.
say. They're not food like, but that's a big saboteur. When it comes to like the macros of protein, fat, and carbs, carbohydrate, all the macros, there's good versions and unhealthy versions. So I don't think any of the macros is bad for you. The question is amongst protein, what's the cleanest protein? So you saw that I picked salmon.
Yeah.
I would probably pick organic chicken, grass-fed beef if you're going to have that. And then in the fat category, I would stick with like plant-based fats if I can, and then use these in the proportion based on my other cardiometabolic risk factors. So not like overzealous with these fats because the calories add up as well too on fats.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to carbs, I lean heavier on fruits and vegetables even more than fruits. So like a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts vegetables to 1 part fruit. And then the fruit, if you can, keep it to fruit that grows in temperate zones, things like pears and apples and berries versus tropical fruits, things that grow in tropical climates because they
Like
tend to have a
brightly
higher
colored
sugar.
fruits. Mm.
Yeah, because sugar, whether it's natural, like mangoes, or orange juice, that's natural. Sugar will spike insulin, and insulin and or sugar can definitely blunt the liver's ability to detoxify. And it does it by having that sugar turn into fat that literally clogs the liver. And this is a new epidemic. It used to be called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Mm.
And now we're making it more specifically called metabolic associated steatotic liver dysfunction. Anyway, all that to say, it's your blood sugar and insulin that you're spiking from your diet or your drink, and it's creating excess fat because it's got to do something with that sugar. It turns it into fat. And when that circulates in the body, it clogs up the liver. And then the liver, it's kind of like a greasy sponge.
Yeah.
If you've ever had a greasy sponge that you try to clean a greasy pan with, it doesn't work very well. So the liver is like a sponge that's cleaning up your blood. So if it gets cloggy with bad fats and bad sugars, it doesn't detoxify well. Does that help?
That helps a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And just to complete the picture, you've mentioned the foods that we should be eating and some lifestyle practices as well. You've mentioned exercise, sauna. But can I just ask you about supplements? Just which ones you recommend? Now, I know that is highly personalized, but are there any that you can say that are generally safe for most people to enhance their detoxification?
Yes. I would say if I had to pick, number one, I think vitamin D3, K2 is essential for the entire body to work well, including the liver, because it's so essential for blood sugar regulation. So notice I say vitamin D3 with K2. That's a whole nother program for you, but that is a nuance that I'm saying specifically. The other thing that is helpful for the liver is zinc.
Mm.
Zinc for, and I'll be using US dosing. So 20 to 25 milligrams a day total for women, and closer to 40 to 50 milligrams per day for men. So zinc is super essential for the liver to work. Then you have a vast amount of just micronutrients. These are like kind of your standard things that you get from a solid multivitamin, multimineral. They're necessary for the liver to be energized to be able to detoxify. So your liver needs energy to detoxify. So make sure you get those kinds of multivitamin, multimineral. And then there's another group of what we call phytonutrients, which are like plant-based herbs and botanicals that accentuate and accelerate and support the liver in getting things removed. These are the things I was talking about, like the glucosinolates, the rosemary is another ingredient, milk thistle is another one. So in functional medicine, we work on making things easier to do. And if you had to pop 17 pills, like here's my vitamin A, and here's my B1 and B2, and here's my B3, you would have another whole gastric distress issue from swallowing 20 capsules 3 times a day. So most functional medicine nutritional therapists and coaches and providers have blends that are liver support blends that we incorporate in to our detoxification processes.
Right. Okay. So that's fab. I feel like we've had so many great tips when it comes to getting started on a detoxification journey. Is there anything that you think you want to add? Because I know I'm very aware of time. So is there anything that you want to add with relation to weight loss and detoxification? Any kind of main points that you want to leave people with who are ready to start?
Yeah, I would highly recommend that you look for a functional medicine provider in your area to support you if you want to do a real effective and potent detoxification program. You can absolutely whittle away at your toxic burden slowly but surely, and it may take months to years to do it kind of through lifestyle and some basic supplements, but our functional medicine training gives us the ability to, in 5 weeks or so, make a major leap forward. And when we do that, a lot of people feel not only physically better, but they feel psychologically better. And then that kind of is the catalyst for taking on new lifestyle behaviors. So absolutely, you could do it alone. But if you're really, dealing with some significant health issues or an annoying one that just doesn't go away, I would get a trained professional involved to help you so you can do this wisely and safely.
And what are the best ways that people can look you up after this conversation?
You could go to forumhealthtampa.com, and on that website, we also offer a lot of other education opportunities to complement what Tam's doing as well. So you can absolutely come to see us. We'd love to be able to take care of you, or we have many locations throughout the US. And we have weight loss programs as well that take into account the need for detoxification and some of the latest and greatest weight loss protocols that are available.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Shilpa. That was fantastic. And I feel like I got so much out of the conversation. I know that my audience did. So that is exactly why I wanted to chat to you on this podcast. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
You're so welcome. And thank you for all the good work you're doing in sharing this information to more people.